Is Dracula a tragic romantic hero, or is he just a stalker? The line between epic romance and a restraining order is often just a matter of lighting, I suppose. When a man burns down the world for a woman, we call it an epic romance. But if a woman builds a world for herself, we call her a witch. I was sent the new Dracula trailer recently, and it is leaning hard into the sad boy vampire trope. It's got everything. Caleb Landry Jones looking tortured, Christoph Waltz looking pious and menacing, and a whole lot of blood. Important note, I haven't seen the entire film yet. I am analyzing the marketing of it by way of the trailer. What story the trailer is trying to sell us, and what that framing tells us about how we view male versus female monsters. On the positive side, the film looks like it's beautifully photographed. It's probably well acted. I'm a big fan of Christoph Waltz, and I know I am absolutely going to love the score because they got Danny Elfman to do it. And he is by far my favorite film composer. And of course, the Dracula tale is timeless. The costumes are probably going to be amazing. That's all the positive stuff. Let's get into the rest of it, because y'all know I'm not going to leave it there, right? Before we get started, you know what to do. Love or hate, like and share, because the algorithm does not care. To understand why the 2025 Dracula trailer looks the way it does, we have to look at how we got here. Because Dracula didn't really start out as a zaddy. He started out as a creepy pest. In 1931, when Bela Lugosi first put on the cape, he wasn't really looking for love. He was an other, a foreign contagion. The horror of the initial 1931 film wasn't about heartbreak. It was about invasion. He was a predator, full stop. Initially, there was no Mrs. Dracula that was waiting in the wings to explain away his bad behavior. He was a monster, and the goal was to kill him. Fast forward to 1958, when Hammer Horror gave us Christopher Lee. We introduce color, we introduce blood, and crucially, we introduce sex appeal. Lee's Dracula was physically imposing and dominant. The biting became a metaphor for sexual corruption. But even here, he was still the villain. He was the bad guy you might secretly be attracted to, but you knew you were supposed to root for Van Helsing. You knew you were supposed to root for the guys trying to kill him. The real pivot happens in 1992, Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is ground zero for the sad boy vampire trope. This movie changed the game. It took Vlad the Impaler, the historical figure known for putting people on spikes that the character was thought to originally have been based on, and gave him a tragic backstory. He wasn't evil. He was grieving. He wasn't killing people because he was a demon. He was doing it because he missed his wife. Aww. This is where the male loneliness angle really takes root. The narrative shifts from, how do we stop this monster, to, can love save him? And that brings us to 2025. The new trailer isn't inventing this trope, it's just the latest evolution of it. We've gone from Dracula is a threat to Dracula is a tragedy. And that shift is important. Because when we start framing mass murderers as just guys who loved too hard, we're entering dangerous territory. So here's the setup for the new film. 15th century prince loses his beloved wife, curses God, becomes a vampire, and waits centuries to find her reincarnated soul in 19th century Paris. Meanwhile, he's being hunted by a priest who's trying to save his soul. It's framed as a man defying fate. But is it? Or is it the ultimate refusal to take no for an answer, even from death itself? Here's the full trailer.
My order has been studying this for 400 years. And you're the first to have captured a specimen alive. These creatures are the result of a divine curse.
What exactly did I capture?
A vampire. For 400 years now, we've been looking for the source.
Here you are.
He comes to find his princess.
Count Dracula. Centuries ago, I asked God for one favor. I will fight in his name, but I ask him to spare my wife. He took my princess. Tell your God that until he brings me back my wife, my life no longer belongs to him. Pure souls can be reincarnated. Since then, I have lived on, waiting for her return.
She's in danger. He's here.
Let him come.
If we succeed in destroying this demon, all those who he's bitten will be freed from the curse.
God sent you here to kill me.
God sent me here to save you.
Let's talk about the ideal woman in this trailer. Her name is Elisabetta, and her most defining feature? She's dead. Look at the lighting. She's bathed in this soft, angelic, golden glow. It looks like religious iconography. And now look at Dracula. He's in cold, sharp shadows. The cinematography itself is telling you, he is the subject, she is the object. This brings us to a trope that comic book fans know very well. Women in refrigerators. The idea that a female character exists solely to be killed, maimed, or disempowered in order to motivate the male hero's angst. The term was coined in 1999 by comic book writer Gail Simone. It references Green Lantern number 54 from 1994, where the hero comes home to find his girlfriend murdered and literally stuffed into his refrigerator by the villain. Fridging, as they call it, is what happens when a female character is killed, maimed, raped, or otherwise disempowered solely in order to move the male character's story forward. Her death isn't about her tragedy, it's about his pain. Her suffering gives the male hero a reason to be brooding, vengeful, or serious. His emotional development is more valuable than her life. In the trailer, Elisabetta isn't even really a character. She's a plot device. She's the fuel for Dracula's rage. And this connects perfectly to the patriarchal idea of the safe woman. The safest woman is one who cannot speak, cannot act, or possess her own desires. She's a blank screen for the man's projection. Think about the language the trailer uses. He's waiting for her. He's hunting for her soul. If you strip away the Gothic violins, the Danny Elfman soundtrack, and the candlelight, this is terrifying behavior. He refuses to let her leave existence. Instead, he's hunting for her soul across all of eternity. Now let's compare this to the source material, because the shift is fascinating. In Bram Stoker's original novel, published in 1897, Dracula is not a romantic hero. The original story is told through letters and journals. Jonathan Harker travels to Transylvania to sell Count Dracula property in England, only to realize that he's a prisoner of the Count. Dracula then travels to England and targets two women, Mina Murray and her friend, Lucy Westenra. Mina is Jonathan's fiancée. Lucy is bitten, dies, and returns as a vampire until Dr. Van Helsing and her suitors hunt her down and destroy her. When Dracula starts feeding on Mina, the group chases him back to Transylvania. They don't save his soul with love. They stab him in the heart and cut his throat. The book ends with order restored. Dracula is dust, and Mina is back to being a good Victorian woman, wife and mother. See the difference? In the book, he's a parasite, an invasive species. He represents a foreign threat to the Victorian home. He is disease and decay. But in 1992, and in the trailer for this film, he's the protagonist. The framing is such that the threat isn't the vampire, it's the people trying to stop him. This brings me to the most infuriating double standard in this entire genre, and it connects directly to the work I've done in my series, Witches, Whores, and Rebels, a feminist history of patriarchal capitalism and how to burn it down. One of the core arguments I make in that series is that historically, you didn't actually have to hex anyone or sign a book in blood to be hunted as a witch. You just had to be a woman who didn't need a man to survive. We see this in the trial records consistently. It wasn't just the old crones that were targeted. It was the widows who refused to remarry because they wanted to keep their property. It was the women who were too good at business, like the alewives who brewed better beer than their male competitors and were accused of sorcery for it. It was women who were happily single. In the eyes of the church and the state, female agency itself was the witchcraft. The simple act of a woman building a world for herself was seen as unnatural, as an attack on God's order. Now hold that thought and think about this trailer. Dracula is a literal warlord. He renounces God. He slaughters thousands. He defies death itself in order to get what he wants. This is the ultimate agency. That is power unchecked. And yet, The trailer frames this as a tragedy. The marketing presents it as though it's a love story. We're meant to weep for his lost soul. It romanticizes the man who destroys the world because he's sad. And this plugs directly into the modern conversation we've been having about the male loneliness epidemic. We are constantly told that men are suffering, isolated, and adrift. But instead of asking men to build community, to go to therapy, or practice emotional vulnerability, pop culture gives them this fantasy. The fantasy that their pain makes them special, that their loneliness grants them permission to be monstrous. The narrative suggests that if a man is sad enough, the world owes him a woman to fix it. It teaches men that they don't actually need to do the work of connecting with people. They just need to wait for a love so powerful that it soothes them. Them being forced to live a life without it justifies their rage. This is not a cure for male loneliness. This is a recipe for entitlement. But if a woman in the 15th century did even a fraction of this, if she just said, I don't really need the church, I have my own life, thanks, she was an existential threat that had to be exterminated. Which brings us to the only female character in the story who actually tries to take power for herself, Lucy Westenra. In the book, Dracula has turned her into a vampire. She feeds, she wants, she takes. Just like Dracula. But unlike Dracula, the narrative doesn't think she's a romantic hero. It thinks she's a disease that needs to be cured. But why does this marketing work on us? Because we've been conditioned for decades to view male obsession as the highest form of flattery. Dracula isn't the first monster that women have been expected to tolerate, excuse, or even love. Edward Cullen from Twilight. That guy broke into Bella's room and watched her sleep. In real life, that's a restraining order. But in 2008, that was relationship goals. Joe Goldberg in You. He literally murders people, but because we hear his internal monologue, his sad, lonely, intellectual justification, the audience ends up rooting for him to get the girl at worst, or at best, wanting him not to go to jail. Even Christian Grey from 50 Shades. He tracks her phone, buys the company she works for, and isolates her. But he's rich and tortured, so romantic, right? From what I can see from this trailer, the new Dracula is just the latest in this trope. The industry is betting that if the actor is hot or magnetic enough, and the music is sad enough, if we have all those elements, we'll somehow forgive genocide, just like we forgave stalking. The trailer suggests a film that romanticizes male obsession, while historical horror demonizes female desire. If the roles were reversed, and if a woman renounced God and slaughtered thousands to bring her husband back, would she be the romantic hero too? Or would she just be a witch? Also, we need to stop pretending that this is just a movie trope, because when we romanticize male obsession and male violence, we're romanticizing the biggest statistical threat to women's lives. In the movies, when a man refuses to let a woman go, it's framed as devotion, as romantic. In reality, it's the #1 predictor of femicide. The statistics are horrifyingly clear. Among all female homicide victims in the United States over the past 25 years, 92% of them knew their killers, and 63% of them were killed by current husbands, ex-husbands, or boyfriends. The leading cause of death for pregnant women in the United States is homicide at the hands of an intimate partner. Pregnant women in the U.S. are more likely to be murdered by the father of their child than they are to die from any pregnancy complications. And femicide is not just an issue in America. It is a global epidemic. According to the United Nations, every 10 minutes, a woman or girl is killed by an intimate partner or a family member. Globally, 85,000 women and girls were killed intentionally in 2023. And these lives were not taken in a war zone or by strangers, but usually in their own homes by men they knew, men they trust, men who were supposed to love and protect them. And here comes pop culture, continuing to teach young men that not taking no for an answer is romantic. We're teaching them that if their love is intense enough, it can override her consent, her safety, and sometimes even her life. Real life Draculas don't have castles. They have the keys to your apartment. They don't have superpowers. They have guns. And when they destroy the woman they claim to love, it isn't a Gothic tragedy. It's a crime. So when this trailer asks us to sympathize with a man who burns down the world because he misses his wife, I'm not seeing a hero. All I see is the headlines that we read every single day. So where do you draw the line? Is centuries of stalking, lying in wait for your wife's reincarnated soul romantic? Or is it just an obsessive refusal to let her go? I suppose we'll find out in February, when the film opens in theaters in the US. And don't forget to check out my series, Witches, Whores, and Rebels. I'll link it in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.